Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Michael Sheridan, and this isn't in my written words, but I just want to start by saying I just love this congregation. So I noticed that I was getting increasingly anxious as the days of last December were going by, and it wasn't about getting my Christmas shopping done. I was anxious because we were heading into 2024 and the November election. Does anybody else have some anxiety about this too? Can I see your hands? Am I not alone? Yay, great. So much is at stake. The UU values of fairness, justice, equity, inclusion, interdependence, love, and belief in the democratic process. These are the reasons I am a UU. These are the values that reflect my deepest hope for the world. And I'm anxious that these will not be the values that are reflected back to me after the voting is done in November. Like Langston Hughes, I long to see America be America again, or more accurately, I long for America to become the America we dream of, where everyone counts, where no one is left out, where there is no hierarchy of who is seen as deserving or worthy or American enough. UU Minister Peggy Clark reflects that as much as we like to say we've been a democracy since 1776, we have mostly been a democracy in progress until the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965, which codified the right to vote for every American citizen, including Black Americans, finally. With its passage, the US became a beacon for democracies, both realized and struggling around the world. With our system of government standing on a strong foundation of laws, supported by our people and our institutions, we thought we had this democracy thing nailed down. Well, as you probably know, the Voting Rights Act was severely weakened in 2013 with the Supreme Court's ruling in Shelby County v. Holder, and it faces even more dire threats today. And many are warning that our democracy is on a downward slide. One of the markers of this slide is the Polity Index, which is an international measurement of democracy in governments and cultures. The United States dropped below the democracy threshold on this index in 2020 and was labeled an anocracy. What is an anocracy? It's defined as, quote, a regime that mixes democratic with autocratic features, end quote. We also lost our designation as the world's oldest and most continuous democracy. Switzerland now holds that status. The 2020 analysis went on to state that the United States was at high risk of impending political instability, including, quote, adverse regime change and/or onset of political violence, end quote. Does this sound familiar? January 6th, anyone? Our Polity Index score did return to democracy status in 2021 after the last election, but I'm very worried that depending on the outcomes of the 2024 elections, we may fall below the democracy threshold again, perhaps even lower than before. Other markers of the decline of democracy in the United States include the web of voter suppression laws and policies that we see across the country, including right here in North Carolina. These include extreme gerrymandering of voting districts, restrictions of early voting hours and sites, a shortened window for mail-in voting, increased and unfair efforts to purge voters from the rolls, and more restrictive voter ID laws, just to name a few. David Pepper, lawyer, writer, former elected official, and presenter at a recent UUSJ Democracy Action Team workshop, has written 2 books about all of this, which I strongly encourage everyone to read. The first is right here, Laboratories of Autocracy, which details all the strategies of the anti-democratic forces operating within the United States today. I thought I was fairly savvy about all of this, but after reading Pepper's book, I realized I was just a babe in the woods. He urges us to wake up to the fact that the most recent attack on democracy began long before the 2016 election and has continued ever since. He points to a full state level, i.e. North Carolina level, agenda to erode democracy, which involves not only the voter suppression tactics I've already mentioned, but things like attempts to rig the state constitutional amendment process, work with private organizations to ghostwrite laws, so the legislators don't have to write them, to protect private interest over public needs, promote various tactics to make it more difficult and costly for college students to vote, organize efforts to attack unions, employ the 2080 strategy. That one is a real doozy. You really need to read about it. And so much more, all of which has led to an avalanche of extremism with very real life consequences that we see today, like the loss of reproductive health rights and access to IVF fertility treatments, the erosion of LGBTQ+ rights, book banning and censoring of history, elimination of DEI training, defunding public education, erosion of climate protections, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you depressed yet? Luckily, he wrote a second book, which I also highly recommend. It's called Saving Democracy, which he wrote in 2023. In this, he outlines both the short-term and long-term actions we need to take if we want to hold on to our right to vote and not become a full autocracy. This fight is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. But we can begin now with this upcoming election. Step one is to participate in this election by voting for democracy up and down the ballot, from local boards of education to state races to the presidential race. I'm using 3 criteria for my vote. 1, is this candidate aligned with my personal and UU values? 2, will they uphold and fight for the democratic process? And 3, are they out to serve the people or just maintain their own political power? And one more point. When I was early in my voting career, I once voted for a third-party candidate. After I helped usher in the worst possible outcome by doing that, yeah, exactly, Cammie, I regretted my decision. I learned that I don't have to love everything about a candidate to support democracy, and I can hold that candidate accountable once they're in office. My dear fellow congregants, North Carolina, if you didn't know, is considered to be a potential swing state this year. So please, please do not throw away your vote. Now, as UUs, I'm fairly confident that you're already on board with voting yourself. I do believe it's a requirement to sign the book, isn't it, Reverend Lisa? Okay. But for this election, and all the elections to come, we need to go beyond this base level step. We need to ensure that everyone is energized and no one is blocked from this core civil right, which is why we, in partnership with Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson and UU Justice NC, are launching, could we have a drum roll somehow? The UUCWNC Supporting Democracy and Voting Rights Initiative. Ta-da! So here you will see a listing of various actions you can take between now and November. They're also in the handouts you found on your seat, along with some information from Reverend Lisa. You will see that actions are listed as either Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3. Ranging from relatively quick, we've got one for you later that's literally 10 minutes, and easy-to-do actions that require more actions to ones that require more time and commitment. You're also free, of course, to take other pro-democracy actions with other partners, which you can enter as other on our reporting form. More about that in a minute. There will be information about all of these actions distributed in a timely way from now until November. And for several of these, there will be free training provided as well. And we're going to have a democracy party in September. Woohoo! As Reverend Lisa says, joy is a radical act. So having fun is part of this initiative too. And on top of all that, we're receiving financial support from Reverend Lisa and UU Justice NC to help us with some of these efforts. Thank you. So please read the digest, please, so you know what's going on and you can participate. As congregants, you're often asked to give of your time, talent, and treasure. Well, this congregation already stepped up with the treasure part during our GLT campaign, that was so fabulous. And now we need to step up with our time and talents too. We are setting a lofty goal of 500 for this democracy and voting initiative. We have approximately 200 plus members and friends in this congregation. If we each do our part, we can get to 500 or even higher by November, which we will be keeping track of. I believe there is a voting ninja a democracy ninja in the house. Is she here?
I will be the ninja.
Where did she go? She's been planning this for such a long time. I hope she's okay. Anyway, oh, here she comes. Here she comes. Ta-da! And the voting ninja has asked me to read this poem she wrote. See, we're laughing already. Okay, having fun. The democracy ninja's job's to promote the rights of all people and to get out the vote. The mission is based on decency and fairness to open up minds so folks vote with awareness. This ninja's not violent, but will put up a fight to inform local voters and restore people's rights. Join with the ninja and lift up your voice presenting the facts. We've been hijacked. The fax is our weapon of choice, yes. Ta-da. And here's our thermometer, okay? Thank you, Democracy Ninja. To reach our goal, it's really important that you not only act, but also report that action. And here are 3 easy ways to do that. There are action forms and a collection box in the lobby. You can also submit your action online using either the URL link or the QR code. So we've come into the 21st century. You can just point your phone at that code. It's really important that you report each and every action that you take. It's really a short form, I promise, only 4 questions. So please, please do this. We're hoping to announce in November that we've met our goal and can celebrate it like we're celebrating the success of our GLT campaign today. So one more thing, I want to bring your attention to an action you can take right now, just this afternoon. We all know how important early voting is, right? Which is why advocating for policies to support early voting is critical, and why it is one of our Tier 1 actions highlighted in yellow here. In both New Hanover County and Brunswick County, the meetings to determine the schedule for early voting has already occurred. They moved them from August to May. But the good news is that there was not a unanimous vote in either county, and the majority in both counties supported the full 17 days of voting, including Saturdays and Sundays. Why is this good news? Well, this is good news because it means the county plans must now be sent to the State Board of Elections for a final determination. We have a good chance of getting the full 17 days of early voting in both counties, as it only requires a majority vote at the state level, not a unanimous one like at the local level. And the fifth person is appointed by the governor. This means we still have time to make our voices heard by sending a brief email, and we're making it really easy for you. We have a sample email and specific information on where and when to send them, which you can get right after service from one of the members of our democracy voting team. Please stand up, folks, so they have the forms. So please take this first simple step to support democracy in voting. And when you do, remember to complete the action form, either here in church or online. You just do a check right there. So finally, we've unapologetically stolen this wonderful quote that Bill Singleton shared with us last week as our slogan. You can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. So Bill, you are now an honorary member of the Social Justice Ministry. Thank you. So friends, we can either sit in our anxiety and wring our hands, or we can stick our heads in the sand, or we can drink more wine, or we can take action. We have a plan, we have a reporting mechanism, we have resources, and we have a slogan. All we need now is you. And if you need some real inspiration, let me turn this now over to Reverend Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. I'll try to keep this brief. It is such a joy to be with you all today. I've been smiling so much my face is hurting right now. As Michael said, I'm Reverend Lisa Garcia Sampson. I proudly lead our UU Justice Ministry here in North Carolina, and we have the privilege of working in partnership with over 24 UU congregations across North Carolina, representing 5,000 UUs. And in 2024, we are ready to make UU the Vote the largest activation of UUs in the history of our state. Are you ready? Michael has already outlined the issues but beyond preserving our democracy, there is so much at stake. I know that many of you know 2023 was an incredibly difficult year in North Carolina. Last year, our legislature passed a monster abortion ban, which has had a ripple effect across North Carolina and throughout the entire South. 3 anti-trans and LGBTQ bills became law, including a Don't Say Gay bill and a ban on gender-affirming care for minors. We witnessed the continued dismantling of our public schools at both the policy and funding level, and as Michael said, we can go on and on and on. The good news is, as Michael has just showed us, is that we have a plan. And even more so, the good news is that we belong to an abundant, loving movement in North Carolina that is building relationships and trust and power from the mountains to the ocean, from our cities to our rural communities. This is the movement that, after a decade of fighting, last year finally expanded Medicaid to over 600,000 people in our state. People said it was never going to happen, but we kept fighting, and UUs played a critical role in getting it over the finish line. That is the power of our movement. It is a movement that is fighting to win $4.4 billion in desperately needed funding for our public schools in North Carolina. And it is our movement in 2024 that will register voters and educate voters and turn out voters, because the majority of people in North Carolina want reproductive rights and want LGBTQ rights and want a strong democracy, and we are not going to stop fighting until we get it. Last month, I had the privilege of participating in Blueprint North Carolina's 3-day convergence, bringing together over 80 progressive, nonpartisan organizations. The theme of the convergence was, "This is our time." Together, we co-created a shared political analysis and committed to shared goals and strategies for this year's electoral cycle. I mention this to say that this year, our statewide UU the Vote campaign and the list of actions that Michael has just provided with you are strategic and they are impactful. They are what those who are most expert in this work and those who are most directly impacted have asked us to do. In our voter registration work, our phone banking, our poll protecting work, we are living into the highest values of our faith, and we are contributing to our larger movement strategies. And we are doing so also in our Tier 1 actions, like our beloved postcarding campaign. I am so excited for your postcarding democracy party in September, but real talk for a second. For most of us, postcarding should be like the appetizer before the meal. Today's action is the appetizer before the meal. This year, our moral legacy is on the line, and if you can do more than postcarding, you have the moral responsibility to do so. It is time to go deeper. I urge every one of you to find at least one thing on the Tier 2 or Tier 3 level of activity to do this year. I want to end with a story. In General Assembly, in our UUA General Assembly in 2019, our UUA President Susan Frederick Gray said, quote, "This is no time for a casual faith." And she challenged us to reach out to 1 million voters in 2020, challenging us to UU the vote. I know Susan, I have heard her tell this story many times before, and she says that as soon as that ambitious goal came out of her mouth, there was a part of her that wanted to put it right back in because it was so scary to so publicly set an ambitious goal like that for a relatively small denomination like ours. Michael, having just announced your 500 action goal for 2024, can you by chance relate to that feeling? Yes. Yeah, I thought so. This is what bold and courageous leaders do. And bold and courageous communities rise to meet that challenge, to meet the moment. I know you've already filled up one thermometer this month. Are you ready to meet that 500 action challenge? By the way, I invite you to join UUs across the state next Tuesday, May 14th, for our official North Carolina UU the Vote launch. You can register at uujusticenc.org. I have invited Michael to speak at this event to share your congregation's goal. You have set the standard for congregations in our state, and I hope that others will meet you there. So please invite fellow congregants to join us. Let us inspire the rest of the state to demonstrate the power and the commitment that UUCW has done today. If you don't know how the rest of the story of Susan Frederick Gray goes, let me tell you. In the end, it turns out that President Susan Frederick Gray was right to question that goal of reaching out to 1 million voters. Because you see, by October of 2020, we had already reached out to 3 million voters. That is the power of our faith. UU the Vote has gone on to become the largest activation of UUs in the history of our faith, and we are a part of it. Each and every one of us is a part of it. Beloveds, this is no time for a casual faith. This is no time to be stuck in fear or despair. No, this is a moment to interrogate the limits of our imagination for what we can do together. To lean into the loving movement, this loving, abundant movement in North Carolina that is more powerful than we can even imagine. It is time to believe, to really, truly believe that this is our moment and we are ready. May it be so. Amen.